What's up, everyone? Welcome to Season Gaming Bitcast, the best podcast at noon on Saturdays. So today, you've got myself, Ainsley Bowden, known as Porsche Power, coming at you. Slightly medicated, might be a little weird today. We'll see how that goes. We've got Mr. Crunch Time putting in the extra hours for the podcast this weekend. I appreciate it, sir.
Yeah, no problem, man. I mean, I know
it is required. You're not getting paid.
This is not Polish law, but you know, I'll take it. I'm heavily medicated, so this should be awesome. But it's like a normal Saturday though, so it's
you don't have a special shirt on today? Nothing special?
No, this is shout out to my daughter going to
that's fair. Yep. Okay.
There you go.
Very good. All right, and joining us for the first time, very excited to welcome Benji Sales to the show. It is a pleasure. How you doing, man?
Hey, man, thank you for having me on. I'm pumped to be here. I'm doing great. I'm not as medicated as you are, but I am rocking with some coffee. So that's my medication.
We're gonna get like half an hour into the show, and you're gonna be having to host at that point. We'll see.
Andy's gonna be drooling all over himself. I'm gonna be passed out in the corner.
Yeah,
the Benji show.
Yeah. So for what's going on, chat? Good to see everyone. Yeah, so if you didn't see my note this morning, I literally had oral surgery just like an hour and a half ago. So I am really medicated and I feel fine, but my mouth is a mess. So we'll deal with it as it comes, but it could be fun. Also, just announced for everyone that we are going to be giving away 2 months of Xbox Game Pass, 2 single months, so 2 winners during the show. So just as long as you say anything in chat, even if you're a new watcher, listener, what have you, it's all good. Just put it in there. We'll pick the winners during the show, and then we'll get your codes to you after the show. So, all right. So, Benji, man, absolute pleasure to have you on. I know that we followed each other for a while now, and it's really the thing I love about the way you approach gaming is you do it like we do here in our fan base is really around being positive and just looking at the goods and the negatives of every platform. And so it's been a pleasure seeing you grow on Twitter. And so, since it's your first time here, just wanted to talk through kind of what got you into gaming to begin with. Where'd you start? Was someone an influence on it? You know, where it kicked off for you?
Yeah, well, thank you for the kind words. Thank you very much. It all kicked off for me whenever I was just a little kid, I think like many people. And my very first real introduction to games was with the Super Nintendo. My uncle bought me and my sister one when we were just little kids. I can, I to this day can vividly remember opening it up as a present, and then we were freaking out. So that's where it started with me, with Super Nintendo games like Super Mario World. That was really that was really the first game that, like, as a kid, I completely played through myself and beat. Like, that was my first true game. Nice. That's where it all kicked off for me, and it's been a lifelong passion, since. That's awesome.
So, wow. So you're definitely younger than we are then.
I'm 32.
32 coming as a surprise, literally anymore.
That's true. Yeah, we tend to be the older people on the show for sure. We are season gaming, so it works in the end. So as you have kind of gone through the platforms, growing up with the Super Nintendo and beyond now, so what turned in, if you had to pick like a favorite series or favorite game, what would it be for you?
I'm one of those people that likes like just about every genre. So narrowing it down is really hard. I think there's 2 franchises though that really stand out for me. Like if we talk about like across my whole life, and those would be Halo and Final Fantasy. Yeah,
damn it.
There's a ton. Like I said, it's so hard for me to narrow down because I'm one of those people that just like loves games.
Yeah.
But those are 2 that really stand out. Halo for me has just so many amazing memories, whether that's playing the single player or playing, system link LAN parties with my buddies on Halo 2 or even online. Yeah, just so many years of amazing Halo memories. And then Final Fantasy has been one of those franchises I've played every single entry. Final Fantasy 7 was really what kicked it off for me. Like, I think for a lot of people, that was their introduction to Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
I can never forget my cousin bringing over Final Fantasy VII, and I'd never played a game like that in my life, and my mind was being blown at a game like this, because I was coming from, like Super Nintendo and stuff. I didn't even have a PlayStation 1 at the time yet.
Yeah.
And yeah, so those are two franchises that really mean a lot to me.
That's awesome. I was laughing because, you joked about Banjo-Kazooie last night on Twitter with Dan, and I'm always preaching about Banjo-Kazooie. Funny enough, I didn't put any of my Banjo stuff behind me.
That's a shame.
But Dan and I talk every day offline, of course, and I said to him, if Benji likes Halo, he's just going to be golden. Like, we may have to get him permanently on the show, because that's my favorite series. So,
nice, very nice.
Yeah, but Dan is not the biggest Halo guy. So every time we have a guest, one of the questions is like, "Are you a Halo person or not?"
Yeah, but he likes Final Fantasy, so I'm on board.
There we go.
A little bit of time for everybody.
Yeah.
What is your take on Anthem?
You know what's funny? I have never played Anthem besides the beta. I played the beta, so
and I played Anthem.
You've played the whole game.
Okay. I played the beta back when they were doing that, and I was like, even during the beta, I thought there was a lot of issues, and I was like, I'm gonna wait on the regular game, and then I saw all of the stuff online about it, and I was like, all right. Once this game gets maybe fixed later on, that's whenever I'll try it.
Yeah, you were a lot smarter than Dan and I, is what you're saying.
Way smarter than me. Yeah.
Dan in particular, who we always like to joke, still has currency in that game he hasn't spent.
Oh, no.
So much currency.
Oh, my gosh. So like we said, yeah, you've become really, I would say, really well known on Twitter and social media. Love your posts. What got you into kind of that, right? Like what pushed you towards the analyst type of perspective on the gaming platforms and getting involved in that area?
Yeah. So I've been active on forums and stuff for a really, really long time. The first video game forum I joined was way back when it was GameTrailers.com.
I remember.
Yeah, that was the very first video game. So shout out to Easy Allies, former Game Trailers people. That was really like my introduction to talking about games with people online was Game Trailers. And I'll never forget, I was in a thread there and people were talking about the sales. I don't even remember who it was now. This was so long ago. But someone was commenting on the sales of Fable, the game Fable. Okay. And I remember being super interested in it because growing up, I knew what me and my friends liked, but seeing the sales numbers, all of a sudden to me, that was kind of enlightening because I was like, wow, this is what other people besides my circle think about this game. If it's selling a lot, clearly a lot of people must like it too, or if it's not. So that led me to the VG Charts forums.
Yeah, okay.
I was a super active member of VG Charts for a long time, and then eventually NeoGAF, and then Reset Era, and I just all over the place talking and researching sales. So it became one of those things where I was kind of known in terms of just the hardcore forum community for talking about sales. And I started thinking to myself, there's a lot of people outside of this bubble that don't really know much about the gaming industry and how it works. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to make a Twitter, I'm going to make a YouTube, and I'm going to branch out and see if maybe I can help drive some of the conversation online, because I noticed a lot of my favorite podcasts and stuff that I really liked, they just didn't really know the sales side. So I feel like there wasn't a lot of people that were communicating that side of stuff. So I thought, hey, maybe I can help the conversation there. And it's kind of blown up since then. I did not expect, the kind of feedback I've gotten since. And it's been amazing. It really has been truly life-changing. At first, I didn't put the whole independent analyst thing, on my feed. I just said I talked about game sales and things like that. But eventually it kind of hit the point where actual companies and developers and things like that were reaching out to me and they were asking my opinion on this stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to own it. I'm going to say I'm an independent analyst if the actual gaming industry is asking for my feedback. So yeah, it's been amazing. It's been an amazing couple of years.
That is incredible. But I'd say it's well deserved. Like I said, I'm not trying to saturate you with comments, but no, it's very balanced, and you take a really good approach to it. So I think that's awesome, man. Congrats.
Thank you.
Let me get the Hassan with his weekly Anthem comment. Dan, you tried to get ahead of it.
I did. I wasn't trying to, slow Hassan down. Don't get me wrong. It's always appreciated. But, I wanted to get it out there because, it's what people really, really want to know from Benji. We talked about this and having him on and everything. I was like, as long as we get some Anthem, takes, we're good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Tried to head it off. We can never get ahead of it, though. There's too much Anthem to go around. Again, Son, appreciate it, man. All right. So that's awesome. Let's get into the week then. So we had a week that was not as kind of action packed as the past couple weeks. In fact, given the launch of the new consoles and everything, I think that many of us expected PlayStation to do something this week. Came and went, of course, and now we know, of course, Japanese YouTubers have videos primed for tomorrow, I believe, that are going live. So we'll start to see some real time stuff there, which is cool. Not really what I expected from a first debut of the PlayStation 5, but something's better than nothing. But let's get into the topics of this week. And one of the biggest that came out, and Dan, I know you're pumped about this one, is really Jason Schreier bringing up attacking crunch again. And so he focused on CD Projekt Red here, which has instituted a 6-week mandatory crunch. Now, as I understand it, and Benji, you may know more on this because I looked up, reminded myself of some of these details just as I got home. But for what I understand, it's 6 weeks mandatory, but that's obviously spread across the whole studio, right? So for each individual employee, it's 1 week mandatory, extra time where it's 6 days a week work and I think some extra hours. They are paid for that time. It's paid overtime, and I believe that's Polish law. So they have to do that anyway. And then the head of the studio also came out and said it was a very difficult decision, but it's just what we have to do for the game. And he said, just a reminder, they are paid for the time, and they also will get 10% profit sharing spread across the whole team after the game launches. Now, I had to remind people because I saw people trying to do math on Twitter about these bonuses, and I'm like, you guys are so far off on how this works. But 10% profit sharing is total profits, total staff. It's not equal among all staff members, so that will be spread depending on role and position and hours and everything else.
Yeah.
So I think I said, my post response to this, because it's an ongoing joke, Benji, that, Dan, we've joked about with Schreier before, and then there's a little bit of a distaste there for the way he approaches things sometimes. I said on my Twitter feed that, crunch is a very serious issue across not just gaming, right? It's actually far more serious in other industries. But it's something that is a huge conversation. There's nuance to every single situation where crunch is talked about in every company and every aspect of it. And you just can't have that conversation on Twitter. There's a ton that goes into details. And the one thing I don't like about this, the way Jason has approached some of these things, is just from the publicity standpoint. That's hard to say with a half a mouth. And so my comment was simply like, this is an important topic, but maybe the approach here could be better. So, Benji, I don't know if this is something you've kind of looked into, experienced in your past, anything like that. What are your thoughts on this in general and how Jason's approached this?
Yeah, so I'm someone that isn't as I should say, not as much of a intense person in regards to crunch in the gaming industry, right? Like, I'm not someone that's constantly out here talking about how bad it is or anything like that. Whenever the whole Naughty Dog thing was blowing up, I wasn't exactly, going crazy over that one either. What I'll say, and it's kind of like what you were saying, I think that there is a legitimate argument that there is a crunch issue overall in the gaming space, right? We know some studios in particular, Rockstar is notorious for it. Sony Santa Monica is notorious for it, whether that story's come out or not yet. They crunch a lot over there. Naughty Dog crunches a lot. A lot of people could list a lot of studios that they hear have pretty intense crunch. I definitely think that, it's important to keep people's health in mind, to keep people's mental health in mind. So I do think that there is an overall problem with crunch. I definitely think that. That said, this particular case to me doesn't sound as crazy as some I've heard of before, right? There is the profit sharing, which I think is really nice. There's the paid overtime, like you said, which I think is really good as well. So I'm not going to go crazy on this one. You know, I know some people are. I know some people are sounding the alarms and yelling. And CD Projekt Red is a company that I will also say is very well known for crunch, right? So they do have a history of this. And I think that's what's making this also a little more elevated in the discussion, is this isn't the first time we've heard about CD Projekt Red doing this. So I think that's what's causing some of it. But me personally, I'm not going crazy over this one. You know, it's a bummer for the team. I'm sure they're making a gigantic, ambitious game. So I hate to say it, but this sort of stuff is somewhat inevitable whenever you're making a game that big. And that's not my opinion. Many people in the gaming industry themselves will tell you this. When you're making something that ambitious in anything, right? Whether it's movies or games or anything like that, you're going to run into some intense workload. So, you know, I think it is a complex situation. Like you said, it's hard to talk about on Twitter. You're going to get people freaking out one way or the other on it. But I don't think it's the end of the world personally.
Yeah, I gotcha. Dan, what do you want to say on this?
Yeah, well, I don't care about crunch. I mean, honestly, I mean, I'll be that guy. I don't give a shit. Here's the thing, you know, I know you've been through it. I've been through it. You know, a lot of people have been through it. You know, if this was like some kind of forced labor where it was like, you're not going to get paid for it, you're not going to, you know, and even if it's just because of Polish law that dictates, you know, that's great. Go work in Poland. Fantastic. You know, it sounds awesome. Here's the thing. I don't like Jason Schreier. I'm just going to come out and say it. I think all of his articles are, you know, not say all of them, it's hyperbole, but you know, he thrives on those kind of, you know, opening up people's eyes to the inside of what happens in the industry. Thing is, that's not very unique to gaming, you know. So now I know his focus is obviously on gaming. I'm not canceling my pre-order. I'm not the one that's gonna, you know, sit here and say it's awesome that people have to work an extra day a week, you know, I guess against their will. But I also know that come November 10th, I'm going to be playing that game, and I'm going to be thankful for every single one of those developers that worked their butt off and, you know, put in the time and put in the effort. You know, I don't know how the 10% works, but, you know, you buy a copy, maybe you buy a guy a cup of coffee, essentially. You know, just think of it that way. You know, they're doing, and the game's already certification for both Xbox and PlayStation. So this sounds more like day one patchwork maybe to me. So it's probably something that a lot of people do. And he's, you know, I can't remember what his name was, but he sounded very, very sincere.
The studio head did. Yeah. Right.
And he sounded very, very sincere in his, you know, and how he felt. And people, you know, if you haven't been in that leadership position, it's not great, you know, given circumstances, given what we're all going through with COVID, you know, it's something that just needed to be done. You know, it's not ideal, I guess, but at the same time, you know, at least they're being compensated for it. You know, and I just get tired of the crunch articles. I really do. It just gets to the point where it's just, you know, there are so many worse things going on in the gaming industry and in every other industry. You know, we saw the Ubisoft stuff come out this week. You know, that is so much worse, you know, creating that kind of toxic environment. To me, in my opinion, anyway. I don't know if anybody else thinks. I don't really care.
That's definitely worse than crunch.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I think, you know, needs to be addressed. And it looks like Ubisoft, you know, to their credit, is doing that. But it's a small time, you know, and according to the article, I think he said that, you know, they've been crunching. There was crunch before, you know, and I hate that word. I hate it so much. Just, but you know, I'm gonna go back to, you know, it is what it is. You know, it's part of the business. It's part of, you know, a lot of businesses, you know, and a lot of people aren't fairly compensated. You know, the fact that they are, fantastic.
Yeah. So his name's Adam Badowski, by the way. So here's what he put.
Good dude.
Yeah, and you can tell it's sincere, right? So we kind of already talked about the details here, but this was his post about it. And as you said, it's one of the hardest decisions he had to make. And, you know, I'm not going to turn this into a personal thing, but I know, you know, Dan, like I I'm in application development. It's very similar in many ways to game development, not from a coding perspective, but from the the structure of things. And I had to release an application this July, which for months I was working, just nonstop, every day, every week, 60 plus hours. And I'm a salaried employee. So it's not like I was getting extra compensation for it, and that's, like I said, that's just not me. That's tons of industries all over the world. I'm not saying it's right. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's not justifying crunch, because crunch really isn't justified. Going back to your point, Benji, about mental health and the long-term strains it can have on people. But my point being that of all the situations that you talk about with crunch, this one seems to be one of the most minor I've actually heard.
Yeah, there's different levels, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like there's some where it's like you've heard some horror stories where people were working like crazy, for like 8 months straight, something like that. It's like, okay, there's a management problem, I think, happening here. But this, in the grand scheme of things, like you said, that there's different degrees of it, and this doesn't feel like a crazy one to me.
No, me neither. And I think that's what annoyed me about it, is because we've already known this has been going on with CD Projekt Red and other studios, and that Cyberpunk right now is the hottest. I mean, it's the biggest, if not the biggest. It's one of the biggest things in gaming right now. And it's just the timing of it. It's like, it feels like Jason's trying to capitalize on the timing of the popularity of the game and controversy around its development. And I don't know. That's what it felt like to me. But anyway. All right, more positive news. So we got to see the Series X in the hands of some major influencers, game industry people, etc., including Benji. See the yours? Love it. You got the compact version, I see.
Yeah, I got the Series X Mini.
I'm gonna need more proof that's actually real, Benji. I need to see it running, please.
I definitely got a few comments like that. But load it up, boot it up, prove that it's real.
But it was really cool to see this week. A lot of the tests, people like Jeff Grubb had a lot of fun with it. I thought his coverage of it was just really funny, because he's just such a carefree dude, and he's just holding it and throwing it around and playing games. But it was really cool to see the quick resume, right, and the obvious, just purely hardware driven difference in things like load times and boot ups and all those things. So I really like the approach that Xbox is taking here as we lead up to the launch of the console, right? I'm not sure, you guys can correct me if you have a different opinion, but I'm not sure we've ever seen a company be, one, this transparent with everything to do with the console, but also get it in the hands of people to do their own videos and own impressions and own articles. 2 months? So nearly 2 months before the console even launches. I mean, if nothing else, it speaks, it shows confidence. Yeah.
This is honestly incredible that Microsoft is doing this, especially as extensively as they are. Like, there are a lot of people that are getting Series X's. Yep. It's kind of been blowing my mind how many people I'm seeing on Twitter that are getting sent these. And I cannot remember a situation ever where hardware was sent out this much to this many people this far out, right? Like we're now a little over a month, but some people had them, a week ago. So we were like a month and a half out. It definitely shows extreme confidence, in my opinion, with Microsoft in terms of the hardware. There's a lot of people that have been, talking about software, but at least in terms of the hardware, Microsoft seems very confident to give this much hands-on this early.
Yeah, it's impressive.
I want one. That's all I know.
I think we're pretty low on that list. We may be on the list somewhere, but it's not that list, I don't think.
Yeah, to Benji's point, it's really kind of unprecedented, the fact that they're getting it so early, that, now they're limited a little bit in scope, I think. I'm sure they're full working units, right? But they just can't show everything yet.
So what they said is that they were sent a document, and each week kind of more unlocks. Mm-hmm. So like this first week, there was a list of games they could show and things they could show. And then this coming week, there's like the list grows to like a couple hundred games. So I saw like Tom Warren saying this week he'll be able to show like Xbox 360 games like Halo 3, all kinds of other stuff. So it's going to keep progressing as we get closer.
Yeah, I want to see the new games. That's what I think everybody wants to see. I think, once we start seeing that kind of stuff, awesome. Now, tomorrow we're getting the PlayStation stuff, I guess, but I don't speak Japanese, man. I mean, hopefully somebody translates these things for me
it is a weird choice from Sony, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I guess they're playing. I mean, that's a big audience for Sony in the Asian market. It's huge. So I get that, but why leave the rest of the world completely out of it? It doesn't make much sense to me.
Especially that's in terms of market size, even it's a weird decision.
Oh yeah,
right.
100%.
Because I mean, obviously, hardcore fan base in Japan and their home country, and I get all that, of course. But why would you not simultaneously, if not nothing else, give it to
that's the part.
market?
Yep. That's the part that feels weird to me about it. It's not that they're, having Japanese influencers get hands-on. That's not weird to me at all. It's just, why would it not be a simultaneous thing? That is a strange choice. I'll be honest. I think a lot of Sony's marketing lately has been very strange.
I agree. Yeah.
The whole thing is,
I mean, the whole way they're approaching this launch is strange. And I think 50% of it is strange and showing a lack of confidence, which is weird to see Sony in that position, right? Because they've been so confident for years now during the PS4 generation. I think the other half is that Microsoft has gone so far the other direction where they've been so forthcoming and so transparent and just aggressive that I think it's got Sony a little bit kind of taken aback. It's making it feel like Sony's not giving us enough information. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's a huge part of it. When you've got somebody that's, showing you all the goods and everything they have, and you're showing, you've shown a little, but in comparison, like you said, it's trash. Yeah. I mean, there's, I don't get it. It's starting to get frustrating.
It's one of those things where it's like, I think the game lineup for PlayStation 5 looks incredible. Like the first 12 months in terms of exclusives looks amazing. So I think that's really helping them out, is that there are apparently so many very, very good exclusives sitting in that first year. But like outside, if we just separate the game lineup, if we just talk about like the messaging and the marketing, the last month has just been very weird, weird. And especially because it feels like the paths are diverging, right? There was a little bit there where Microsoft kind of felt like they were being a little weird with stuff, and Sony felt like they were kind of going really good, like over the summer, I thought. And then, the tables turned the last couple weeks. Like all of a sudden, Microsoft's messaging feels A+, and Sony's is like the complete opposite. It's been a weird divergence the last month.
No, couldn't agree more. And it's funny. We had Bad Bit, who hosts the PlayStation Trophy Room, on last week, and he just came out and said, he's like, for the love of God, Jim Ryan, just shut up, just stop talking, because he's just, every time he talks, he says something that is just, later picked apart, and it just puts him in a bad spot, right? Mm-hmm. So, Pampa, what's up, brother? He said, Dan, you got a PS5? Let us know. How big is his damn system?
Yeah, where's that picture, man?
I don't have that one loaded up. I'll get it loaded up.
Yeah,
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
thanks, Bob.
I wanted to, you really, really have to reinforce your entertainment systems. It's, if you have a low ceiling, you might consider, playing it outside. It's that big. It's pretty huge. So.
Yeah, so I think from a messaging perspective, it's definitely been weird. But anything of the, and I don't know if you guys got to see, but on Major Nelson's podcast this week, he did a few interviews, and one of them was Jason Ronald, who really clarified some things. So if you haven't watched that yet, be sure, even if you don't watch the whole thing, watch the section with Jason Ronald, because he really did answer like all of the outstanding questions that people have had around storage, transferring games, what's playable. It was really well done. And Jason's just an awesome dude anyway. So definitely check that out. The one interesting thing that jumped out to me that I didn't realize prior, and I follow this stuff damn closely, was that, we've heard before that when you play your older games, backwards compatible games, you can play them with the improvements, that they had for like Xbox One X enhanced, right? But if you want the Series X stuff or Series S stuff, you have to be on the internal hard drive. And so what Jason said on on the podcast was interesting to me was that if you have, say, a Xbox One game you're playing on your Series X on an external drive, like a 3.1 USB SSD, he said you get all the benefits as well on that game. The only difference will be the load times. So he said you'll still get like the uncapped frame rate, the max, dynamic visuals, all those other things that the Series X does from a hardware perspective will still work. The only difference will be you won't get that internal super, super fast hard drive performance, which I thought was awesome because I thought you had to install it internally to get the Series X enhancements, but it sounds like you don't even have to do that, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, 3 weeks ago, Ains, I made a message I sent you a month ago where I was just like, I don't know what the hell is going on with this messaging. I mean, we're not seeing crap. We're not seeing, and now I'm like, I've done a 180. It's so great.
Like
I wasn't even gonna, I wasn't even going to order, the X, and now it's gotten to the point where I probably. That's not. I mean, the thing is, they've done such a really good job of just showing all that, all the screens and the games and all this quality of life improvements it's going to be huge, So now you got two coming. So,
yeah, it's been a complete turnaround. Like, I feel like some people that follow me for like Sony info might think that I've been a little tough on Sony lately, or a little optimistic for Xbox, but it's really been because, like you just said, the last couple weeks have been a complete 180. It's been crazy how good Microsoft's messaging has been.
Yep. Yeah. And I think, I think from a market perspective, you could speak to it better than I could, Benji, but I think it's having an impact. I mean, it's obviously anecdotal, right? But you're seeing it across lots of platforms that I follow. I mean, I look at gaming stuff all day, every day on many platforms, and you are seeing that messaging come across where people hardcore Sony supporters, whether you support all and just love Sony, but even they're starting to question, like, what is going on here? You know what I mean? And we're going to talk about it in a second. In fact, we can probably segue into it. But came out this week, the whole save problem with PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5, right? And Dan knows I've been talking about this kind of stuff forever from a network and PSN and infrastructure perspective, because that's where my mind usually goes with this stuff. But it's very clear now that one of two things is happening. We know that the infrastructure behind PSN is relatively dated. They've been improving it for years now, but it's just not the same level of kind of forward thinking as Xbox puts in. And now, don't get me wrong, Microsoft has infinite resources in that space to do that, right? Sony does not. But one of the engineers I was speaking to, and Carl also mentioned this too, our contributor at Season Gaming, that they may be finally, with the PS4 to PS5 jump, that they may be building upon this new instance of PSN and using the PS5 generation as that new stepping stone. So in the future, this will pave the way for better things for PSN and PlayStation, which is a good thing. But it means some short-term pain. And that's usually what happens when you talk about servers, network, telephony, short-term pain, long-term gain. That's what it feels like. But in the short term, this sucks, right? Because we keep hearing, PS5's 100% backwards compatible. They haven't shown it yet. They haven't confirmed what games are going to be played at launch. And now this week, we hear that your damn saves won't even work.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Sounds like it's something that if you want the saves to cross, you'll have to put like an extra level of development in it. Because I know Spider-Man, they said will, but then they said games like Yakuza won't. So yeah, it sounds like for devs, if it's not like a system-wide feature like it is on Xbox, right?
Exactly.
If you're a developer, you're going to have to put extra resources and time to make that work. So it's a bummer. It's a huge bummer.
Yeah, and it just speaks to the overarching kind of planning that goes in, because, this planning for these types of things is years and years, and it just goes to show that they're just not as well executed from that perspective, not all perspectives, but that perspective. So it is a bummer. And I know, Dan, I think for you, Spider-Man's obviously the big one. But, I've talked to some of the people in like our community. Who was it? Graham was saying that he has over 200 hours in Monster Hunter, I think it was, on PS4. And it's like, well, I was hoping to continue that on PS5, and it's like if that doesn't carry over, that's heartbreaking.
Right. Now the question I have, I mean, it sucks, but is this just upgraded games? Because we've seen like Maneater, we've seen the Yakuza game, we've seen the old Spider-Man to the new Spider-Man, Dirt. I haven't seen anything that confirms that it's like something like Monster Hunter that's not upgraded to the new PS5. Will that even, number one, be backwards compatible? And if it is, if it's just playing on, I don't know all the infrastructure stuff. No, that's not me. So now is that going to, it's a PS4 game. There's no upgrades to it. There's nothing. It's just running in whatever backwards compatibility mode they have, which we don't know what that is. Will that save actually work? Because everything I've seen has been with new games that are getting upgraded at this point. I want it to be, obviously everything, like something, like Xbox is doing. It's so much simpler, but also, the tech decisions and how they do all that stuff is beyond my scope. So, I haven't seen anything other than those games. So it's it could still happen technically, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, my guess would be you're going to continue to see this as a problem across other games. I can't say that definitively. And as we were just kind of commenting on indirectly, it's not like they've told us, right? Sony hasn't spoken on this directly. And I think that's part of what's frustrating. If Sony would just come out themselves and say either don't worry about your backwards compatible games, they'll all work, it's only in these instances, or come out and say, look, guys, be honest, just be honest. Say, look, we're upgrading PSN. PS5 is going to be, built upon this new backbone or new infrastructure on the back end. What that means in the short term is this, but hey, here's the long-term benefits. Yeah. Just tell us. At least we'd know.
Yeah. Tinfoil hat on real quick.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is one of those blockers for 505 control games or whatever it is, where they couldn't bring that old version of the game upgraded, where it was a save issue. Because I thought it was, at first I actually, this is just super tinfoily, but at first I thought it was, the fact that they couldn't charge for it and they were just super greedy. And I still believe that they're super greedy on the Xbox platform, but there are ways to upgrade your game. And Xbox has allowed, you can, they said you can't pay for upgrades, but you actually can. You can, it's just a roundabout way of doing it. With this save thing, I'm wondering if they, just said, well, we can't give this to you because of, how Sony is doing their saves. These people won't get it, so you'll have to upgrade to the newest version. I don't know.
They still could have done it on Xbox.
They could have done it on Xbox without paying for it, because there's in the whole thing when they came out and said that stuff, they said, you can not charge for an upgrade, like directly, like to upgrade a game, but you can charge, or you can say, hey, you can upgrade to this new version of like the Game of the Year edition for whatever price. That's not against their rules, I guess. So there were ways around it. So that kind of threw that whole thing out the window. But
I think this conversation highlights the point, right?
Super confusing.
It's pure confusion, and nobody has a definitive answer.
Yep. Yeah, that goes back to our earlier conversation. It's just an issue of clarity with Sony. Yeah, they just had just come out and say whatever is going on with your stuff, because we're only a month away now from launch. Yeah, right. It just feels so weird to me how they're approaching this now. It's like there's so many questions still around backwards compatible games. What's boosted? What's not boosted? What's there day one? What's there later? Microsoft at the very least, even if you don't like Microsoft, right? Even if you're a hardcore Sony fan, I think anyone has to just say Microsoft's being way more clear about what's going on next gen with their platform than Sony is currently. And I noticed some people, they don't care about backwards compatibility, right? There's certain people, they never replay old games. They only play the new stuff. And to them, this kind of stuff probably doesn't mean much. So I get that. I totally understand there's people like that. But there is a lot of people, I especially feel like now that games are getting like really good and the technology is really good. So I feel like games are holding up better than ever right now in a lot of ways. So I think a lot of people are going to want to replay God of War and replay Horizon Zero Dawn. And it's like, so are these enhanced? Are my saves coming across? How is this working? It would just be nice for Sony to just be very clear around exactly how all of this works.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, they have nothing to lose either now, right?
Sorry, Dan.
The pre-orders are done. Everybody's pre-ordered the damn stuff. I guess you can cancel it, but it's not like they got anything to hide from it. They've already sold out. So it's you have nothing to lose.
Yeah, exactly. And I think to your point too, Benji, is that with this upcoming technology we're seeing, especially on the Xbox side with like auto HDR, dynamic resolution increases, frame rate doubling, all these things, right? Going back and playing titles like God of War and Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, tons of people are going to do that because they're amazing games, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, you shouldn't have to wait. The technology is past the point where we need to get simple remasters anymore. You don't need to do that anymore, right? Unless it's an actual remake where you're putting in a lot of effort, Mafia, something like that, right? What we're seeing out of the technology is impressive. And I think the problem is, and we keep saying it is, the lack of transparency doesn't show confidence. When you're not being transparent, it feels like you're trying to cover something up or hide something. Because if it wasn't an issue or you had a solution, why would you not just say it?
Yeah, I feel like they're very confident in their games. That's why they're talking about games.
That's all they talk about.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like on the software side, like their games, they're super confident, so they're willing to talk about it. But yes, I feel like backwards compatibility and things like that, they know they're not at the same level as Microsoft is in regards to that specifically. So I'm guessing that's why you're seeing them just mostly dodge the topic, because I think they see it as, will quote quote take a PR hit on that. But I feel like you're taking a PR hit anyways because people are frustrated. So you might as well just be transparent about it, because they've been transparent, I feel, mostly about the games. In fact, in some ways more than Microsoft, because we do have a lot of dates for 2021 games, whereas Microsoft, a lot of first party games we have.
And we've seen Demon Souls and Ratchet and Clank.
Right. So I feel like they're very confident there. But yeah, if they're staying this quiet around certain other features, I think they just see Microsoft is probably edging them in that scenario. Yeah,
it's interesting. Real quick. So Dan, we missed a super chat. So Fastback, sorry, brother. Only thing Dan is crunching is his bug snacks.
Always, buddy. Always.
Shout out to our friends at Next Level Gaming Podcast. Always some of the best people in the community. Dan, you want to explain that?
Yeah. So I got my PS5. I just wanted everybody to know.
So you can tell us how backwards compatibility works. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. I'm working on that. There's actually a list of stuff I can release every week. And the first list was just that picture. That
was Can you tell us where the power button is? Let's start with basics.
Yeah. I don't know. They haven't released that information yet.
No.
It's a secret.
That's too funny.
Even though I have it in hand.
So let's talk about Spider-Man. Before we do that, real quick, shout out to everyone in chat. Appreciate you swinging by. Dan, do you mind kind of just scrolling through and just picking a first winner for the month of Game Pass Ultimate?
Yeah, sure.
You don't at this second. We'll move on to Spider-Man. I'll get that conversation started, but you can shout it out shortly. And then chat, also do us a favor. I don't usually do this during the show. I never do this, but while you're here, please give us a thumbs up. Please leave a comment if you can. It does help with engagement a lot. So if you haven't done that, we greatly appreciate it. Now, I don't even like doing that. I never bring that up. Moving on.
I feel like I'm the same way. I try to mention it like once per video. It does feel weird to me. Some people don't care. They're just constantly spamming. Hit that like, hit that like.
Hit that like button. Hit that bell. Hit the subscribe.
Yeah. Okay. I won the first one. So it did not work out like I had planned.
Yeah. Don't do that. All right. So staying on PS5 for a minute, we did learn more. And to your point, Benji, another illustration of being transparent with the games. We learned quite a bit more about the games this week. So in particular, we learned a lot about Spider-Man. We got some of the details around what the remaster is going to be, because people had questions about that. We also got details on what the modes are going to be for Miles Morales on the PS5, including, was it this morning or yesterday that Digital Foundry did their thing? I think it was this morning.
Yep. This morning.
Yeah. So I did quickly read through that. I know, Dan, you had it too. but it looks like from what they said, I'm going off from memory here, there's going to be a 4K mode that's locked at 30 FPS. And that's the mode that includes some kind of what Eurogamer Digital Foundry was saying. It's kind of like base level ray tracing. Like it is ray tracing, but it's base level ray tracing. I mean, because it seems like there's obviously a huge flux in the amount of implementation you can have and the effects you can have. And then the other mode is going to be a dynamic resolution mode that runs at 60 FPS, but that mode will not include any ray tracing. Mm-hmm. And so there's a good breakdown of that. Digital Foundry is one of the best in the business, if not the best at that. So if you haven't checked that out yet, check that out. But long story short, the first kind of launch, major game, Dan, I know you're super pumped about, and Benji, I don't know if you're into Spider-Man and all that, but
yeah.
Oh, okay, great. So
I love Spider-Man.
Oh, there you go. So say you got Halo and Spider-Man, Dan.
Yes. Yep. We're taking over.
But it does seem like players are going to still be in that vein, even on the new console hardware, having to make a choice, right? Do you want this better frame rate, better kind of movement experience, or do you really want to experience the newest of the new in terms of visual content on the new consoles? So where are you guys at on this?
I think that the actual remaster sounds pretty extensive. There's actually quite a bit that they are doing to it. It's a bummer they're charging for it, but I will openly admit that I'm a sucker and I'm going to buy it. And I'm also going to buy the Control remaster too. I'm one of those people that's like, hey, video game upgrades should be free. And yet I go and buy them all. So
we're all part of the problem.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm a sucker. I just cannot help it for games I like, obviously. I do think the remaster sounds pretty darn good. It's not just a resolution boost, what I mean, or something like that. It's not like a really basic improvement. They are doing quite a bit to it. So I think that they stated that they've been working on this since last year. So they've done quite a bit to it. So I applaud them for a good effort. There's going to be a lot of mixed opinions about if this should be paid for or not. Like I said, I kind of side on the side I would prefer unless it's a full-on remake, that upgrades were free. But I'm part of the problem because I'm going to buy it. So I'll probably play Spider-Man. I am going to replay through it, and I'm going to play it in the 30 FPS ray tracing mode. For me, it's one of those things I really like high frame rates in competitive games or shooters or something like that. But a game like Spider-Man that's kind of cinematic, I don't really mind the frame rate hit for the best visuals. But it is cool that there is a 60 FPS mode there for people that want it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going 60 FPS, I think. Basically what's going to happen is I'm going to throw it on there and then see what it looks like, side by side as much as I can. My eyes are still getting terrible day by day. I got to eat more carrots. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I don't notice like the resolution as much as I do. I mean, I know there's a huge difference between, 1080 and 4K, huge. And I can tell you exactly what that looks like, especially when I watch movies for some reason. But with video games, it seems a lot harder for me to distinguish. So, but I can see when it's a little bit smoother, having those extra frames, I think really helps out. Just watch Ains dribble all over his face.
Stop it. Right. That's my turn. Just keep talking.
I really wanted to watch it. Anyway, but that's probably the route I'm going. I'm super, super pumped for Spider-Man. I'm with you, Benji. I'm the same way. I just buy all those. I've held off on Control up to this point. I'm literally about to finish it. And man, it's going to be a tough one to say no. It's going to be where if it goes on sale for like $10, I'm all over it. Yeah, so I'm gonna probably have that too eventually. But this is the game that has had me the most excited ever since they announced it, Miles Morales. Now the fact that I get to play through for the 4th or 5th time the Spider-Man, the main game, and get all the trophies again.
I know, I'm excited about that.
I'm
like, hey, a new platinum, sweet.
Yeah, right. I'm not a trophy guy, but I'm not an achievement guy either. But it's just that was my first one I ever had. My first platinum was Spider-Man.
Nice.
So I have no problem doing it all over again, except for the screwball missions.
Oh,
God damn, I can't stand those things. Short of that, I'm super pumped for it. But again, so much confusion. Like I think IGN did that video a week or two ago where it was just they tried to explain it, and I was just like, I'm lost. I'm gone. Just buy the most expensive version, and then you're good to go.
Oh yeah, you're talking about Brian Altano.
Yes.
And Max over at IGN. So I don't know if you saw that, Benji, that kind of spoof video they did. It was like 3 minutes long on Spider-Man's remaster and how you get it.
I didn't see that, but I read the press release and was like, what in the world? The actual
that's actually what they were playing on. Oh, dude, if you haven't watched that video, or anyone in chat, if you haven't watched that, it's even if you, I don't care if you don't like IGN, what have you, whatever, leave that aside and find it. It is hilarious. I watched it like 3 times.
I need to watch it then.
It's so funny. Brian Altano's a good dude, man.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Yeah. So as you know, I'm not a big.
Quick.
Oh, go ahead.
Cool Kill 27. You got the first one.
Cool Kill. Okay.
Kill 27.
Nice.
I put it on there. I put it in chat. Yeah, just get a hold of Ains after the show.
Yeah. So Cool Kill. Find me on Twitter, Porsche Power. My DMs are open. Just DM me, and I'll get you the month of Game Pass after the show. So congrats, man.
Nice. Congrats.
Yeah, I'm said it a million times. I'm not big into Spider-Man, so just kind of sit back and let you guys talk and smile and happy about it. It's awesome because it's a very, very popular game. Their best-selling exclusive, right, in the PS4 generation. So obviously this, and I wrote in my article yesterday, this is a very smart move by Sony to do the type of development they did, where even if it's building upon what they did in the PS4, to have Spider-Man in some type of new game at launch for the PS5, brilliant move.
Yeah, brilliant.
So obviously the controversy this week, because there's got to be controversy about everything for some reason, was that they completely redid the character model for Peter. I was like, okay, cool, he looks good. Why is this a big deal? And when you see the side by sides, there's a noticeable fidelity increase, right? And if you're being honest with yourself, there's a noticeable fidelity increase.
Yes.
Now I can certainly see people saying, I got kind of attached to him PS4, and I get that aspect, but still, when you read what the reason they did it was for the fidelity into the PS5, and it allows them to do other things with the cinematics and stuff. You can't preach that you want an improved next gen game and at the same time argue when they do things to give you that. It's counterintuitive. So I don't know where you guys landed on this. I don't see what the controversy was about, but then again, we usually don't. So
I'm on the same boat as you. I exactly like you said, I get people that were really attached to the way Peter was, because a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people put that this was one of their favorite games of the generation. So I understand if you're like, really attached to that Peter. What I don't get are the comments like, oh, he looks terrible. It looks so bad. It's like, no, that's a very good looking character model.
It's definitely improved.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Whether you like the overall design or whatever more is one thing, but in terms of quality, the character model looks much better. No and they said that this is going to really help in terms of performance capture because he looks closer to the voice actor. It's more similar facial structure, and they do use a lot of that, with mocap and stuff whenever they're acting out scenes. So I think their reasoning is great. I get if some people are a little bummed out because they were attached to the old Peter, but I don't get the extreme controversy where people are like, Insomniac, how dare you? I think he looks great.
Yeah, man. He looks like I gotta say that word. Man, stop moving. Abacap, whatever, 72 over there in the chat. I was gonna split something down. Don't even try to talk, Ains. It's not even worth it.
Oh,
he looks like Tom Holland. Yeah,
he looks like Tom Holland.
Yeah, he definitely has a resemblance. Yep.
Yeah, somebody tweeted out it was Tom Holland, which was hilarious. So, it's for me. It almost gives me, I'm going to go back and play it. So it's almost going to be like maybe a slightly new game. You kind of get this new actor. Everything else is going to be basically the same, but it kind of gives you that a little bit of a different experience. I heard there was another person that got their face changed in the game, but I'm not sure who that was. I just feel bad for, the people who actually do these and, I think it's
put all the work in,
Well, no, the actual actors, it's just like, man, everybody's mad because my face is on this guy's body now in a game. you're going to get a complex is basically what's going to happen. So, just it's fine. It's not that something that you got to get really, really upset about.
No.
I understand, but don't, just stop.
You have to, context, right? I'm sure 90% of the outrage was driven by those people that we don't deal with. Do you know what I mean? They're just the ones looking to start a debate because is this a PS5 game? And same old. So
get out of here.
And I like how we are, almost an hour into the show, and I just remembered that banners, are in here that we usually have running. So yeah, we're good. Good. I'm a little out of it today.
Understandably so, right? I mean, you're a trooper for even being here.
No, we're good. We're good. Yeah. So I think it's a good thing. To your point, I think the remaster, we were waiting to see how much effort they were going to put on. Was this a bare bones type thing? And it's not like a full remake, of course. But then Spider-Man on PS4 didn't need a full remake. It's a touch up, so it's good. One of the funniest memes of this new picture, though, Dan, remember, was I don't know the story because I haven't played through the whole game, but when he's talking to the lady in the bed,
Aunt May.
Oh yeah, I know.
She's like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah, that was a hilarious one. I saw that one. I was cracking up.
Oh man,
it's too funny. All right, so we're going to talk kind of big picture of next gen for a little bit with you, Benji, because obviously we've done that the past 2 weeks with the Bethesda acquisition and everything else going on. Now, the one thing to touch on is that we got more clarity this week on EA Play coming to Game Pass. They did confirm it's coming over on November 10th, obviously, aligning with launch. And what they basically said is that if you're a current EA Access, EA Play member, which I just renewed like a month ago, you're going to get credited some Game Pass Ultimate time for that.
Nice.
Yeah.
I actually didn't even realize that. I completely missed that announcement. That's cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So what it is, it's kind of weird the way they did the calculation, but it's like, okay, so say you have a year of EA Access, they subtract 50 days and then you get a 3-to-1 transfer. So 3 months of EA Play equals 1 month of Game Pass Ultimate.
Okay.
And it's standard math, right? Because it's $5 a month versus $15 a month. So they just did it. And so it works out. I think I have 11 months of EA Play left and I'm going to get 4 months of Game Pass Ultimate. So,
okay,
fine. The one thing to be aware of, and I think our audience would know this, but EA Play is when coming to Game Pass does not mean you're getting EA games at launch. I've seen some people assuming that. It's like, cool, I'm going to play FIFA 2021. Well, you will, but not this year. It's going to function the same way. So you'll get those 8 or 10 hour previews of games about the launch. You'll get the games added to the vault. Anything in there, you'll get right away, right? Battlefield 5's in the vault. Anthem.
There we go.
Jump on it.
No excuses.
Anthem's in the vault. Dead Spaces. There's a lot of good games. Dragon Age Inquisition. A lot of good franchises out there. They're older games, but still games like Battlefield 5 still have huge audiences.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it's good value. But anyway, so love to hear from you, Benji, on and we've touched on some of it, but just like your overall feeling of the consoles as we approach next gen. Like, what are you most excited about? Is it hardware? Is it services, software? Are you getting both the Series X or S and PS5 at launch? Obviously we just said Spider-Man, you're obviously pumped for, but what are your kind of overall feelings about how we're approaching this gen?
Yeah, so I have a Series X and a PlayStation 5 pre-ordered. I was lucky enough that I locked in both. It was a battle to get both. It was stressful. I had to refresh and add to my cart maybe 10,000 times on each, but I eventually got both. So I'm super pumped about that. I am getting both.
Awesome.
In terms of how I feel going into next gen, I'll be honest. I feel like both are going to do so good this gen. Both Microsoft and Sony have not had a serious F up in the lead to this. Now, we've talked about some stuff that's annoying with Sony, some non-clarity issues, but we have not had anything to the degree like we had with Xbox One, where it was a complete disaster before launch in terms of messaging. We haven't had a Wii U situation where the console was coming out and people literally thought it was a tablet for their Wii. Like we have not had a massive F up. I feel like both of these companies are coming in really strong next gen. Microsoft services, their backwards compatibility, they're just knocking that out of the park. Sony's first year of exclusive lineups looks incredible. If they really have Horizon Forbidden West and God of War next year, I mean, that's astounding for the first year. Not even counting stuff like Spider-Man and Ratchet and Clank and things like this. So I think there's a reason you're seeing mass sellouts everywhere. I think both of these consoles are going to hit complete home runs in terms of early sales. There's of course a question of how are these going to sell 12 months, 24 months after launch? That's too far away for us to know for sure. But I think at least those first 6 to 12 months are going to be amazing for both. I see Series X and S family greatly outselling the Xbox One lifetime. I don't think it's going to be even close. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really good about both companies. I have a little bit of gripes with both the things we've talked about with Sony. With Microsoft, I would just like to see more of their actual games. We've had some very cool announcements, but I'd like to see what Fable is, what Avowed is. I'd like to know a little bit more about these projects. So I have minor gripes with both, but I don't think anyone's had like a catastrophic error in their strategy. So feeling good. I think it's going to be a really good beginning of the generation, at least.
Nice.
Completely agree. Yeah, agree on almost all points there. In fact, I think all points. I said very similar stuff in my article. I think both are primed to be to hit record revenue generation, as we saw this gen, right? I mean, both Xbox and PlayStation had fiscal years that had surpassed anything before it. And I think we're going to see that again. And that part of that is the just competence of the platforms themselves. And part of it is obviously the growing gaming industry. But same gripes as well. I think one of the things Microsoft has done damn near everything, or Xbox has done damn near everything right from a hardware and services perspective. But they, in my opinion, they put too much of their money on Halo Infinite being that game this fall. Yeah, and when it got delayed, that's a big gap. That they can't huge. And so we're left with third-party deals, things like Valhalla moving to launch, right, and getting the Series X upgrade at launch. And don't get me wrong, that's what I'm going to be playing anyway. But when you talk about a exclusive reason to get the console, it's a different conversation. But yeah, that's agree 100%.
Yeah,
Dan, anything you want to add?
I just like to see a new generation where it doesn't appear, at least, that one company is just like smacking the other down. You know what I mean? Like it's always like one or the other. I want to see them both come in and just be like throwing it at each other. I don't know why that can't happen. I don't know why it never happens. It's always one way or the other for some reason. I mean, like you guys said, it's going to be fine. Both are going to do extremely well. Both are going to sell like crazy. But it always seems like either with marketing or messaging, there's always one that's doing something that's a little bit better. Yeah. And I've always said, with PlayStation, you can't rest on your laurels. It looks like they are. And I don't understand why. Microsoft has always been about the marketing and getting these incredible values that they have out to the masses of people. That's always been an issue. That's the two things that always drive me crazy. And it doesn't look like, at least right now, that either of those things are actually going to happen. But we've got, the YouTubers having those Xboxes and the influencers is a huge step, I think, especially now. Like, at last gen launch, that wouldn't have made a crap of difference. Now with the the way people get their eyes on the information, it's humongous. Sony, you don't know anything, still being super cocky, and I'm going to say penisy, but just give me some information. That's what I want now. I didn't order this thing, so I get surprised on November 12th. That's what we're at.
And I think one thing that helps both is that they're going honestly in very different directions. And I actually think that helps both. I sent out a tweet about this, and I saw Matt Piscatella sent out a similar tweet not that long ago. Whereas I think cross ownership between PlayStation and Xbox will be significantly higher next generation than what we've seen traditionally. Because really, I mean, last gen people joked, between the 360 and PS3, they called them the HD twins because they were so similar. I mean, like they were putting out very, very similar games and they had very, very similar strategies. And now it feels like they're both kind of doing their own thing. Sony have really settled into these cinematic, blockbuster feeling single player games. Microsoft's really doing services and multiplayer, and they're going to have single player stuff too. I think it's overstated people that are like, Microsoft's just not going to do single player. No, they're going to have some of that too, but they're also going to have, stuff that they're really good at traditionally, which is multiplayer and things like this. So I think it helps that both platforms have a different feel to them. It doesn't feel like if you buy one, there's no reason for me to have the other. They're almost, very similar experiences. I think it helps that they are feeling very different before launch.
100%. Yeah, completely agree. Again, in fact, I didn't see your comment on it. I did see Matt's, and I commented and just said I agree with Matt, completely on this. And I think even more so because the Series S can be that console for Switch and PlayStation owners, right? I think that's where the Series S's market value just increases tenfold. To think that you can get into, even at launch for $300, you can get a console and have instant access to what is now with Bethesda and EA Play going to be 300-400 games eventually here, including some really big games instantly. And obviously 2 years from now, that be 250, right? Or 225 or whatever it's going to be. It's the value there is unbeatable. So, Bizzle, very awesome, man. So first, thank you for the $5 super chat. Always appreciated. And I don't know who got it. I haven't been looking at chat, but he also gave out a 12-month Nintendo code to chat. So that's very, very generous of you.
Awesome.
Bizzle. Thank you, brother. All right. So let's real quick. I'd love to hear your comments because it's the biggest news in years probably in the gaming industry was the Bethesda acquisition. That was a literal A-bomb that dropped that Monday morning when that hit. And the fallout is still, oh man, that's a bad pun. I didn't even intend for that one, but the fallout is still coming.
Beautiful.
But yeah, it is, it's a lot of people have commented, everyone's commented on. And I think it really changes the conversation now and what we're going to see long term out of Xbox Game Studios. I really like to stress to people, these studios don't wake up the next day and it's like, all right, our game's on Xbox, everything's perfect. There's a lot of transition time and team building time and assimilation that has to take place. But I think over time, once they sort through all the tech and the engines and the IPs and what the possibilities are there, we're going to see some really incredible things. So this, in my opinion, without a doubt, I mean, I don't know how anyone can argue it, right? I mean, Xbox is now at a place where their studio strength is, I don't even know the superlatives to use here, but you're at 23 studios and nearly 5,000 employees, and it's just almost unmatched at this point. So from I would say, your perspectives on, one more comment. One thing I really stressed last week from my pure opinion, being in someone who obviously not in the same industry, but looks at things from a business perspective, I tried to stress the point of there's a reason that Phil is saying case by case basis today, rather than locking himself into an exclusive conversation. And that's because these IPs and these studios, these are long-term plays, right? You're talking about IPs that are going to have an impact for years and potentially even decades, I guess, right?
Yes.
And so you'll be able to analyze, depending on the size of the game, the market, what the factors are at that point in time upon a game's release, what you should really do from a marketing perspective. And that's why you haven't heard him say the exclusive piece, flat out, like they did with some of their other studios. So would love to hear your thoughts, one, on Bethesda acquisition just overall, and what do you think it means for Xbox and the market at large? But also your thoughts on, and if you've already said these elsewhere, I apologize, but your thoughts on the whole exclusive conversation from it too.
Yeah, so this is, one of the biggest news stories in the entire history of the video game industry. Yeah. It really, truly is. This is the second biggest acquisition of all time in terms of money, right? The only one bigger than this is when Tencent bought Supercell. So in terms of money, it's second all time. And if you want to talk though, in terms of like IP and studio, it's probably the biggest of all time, right? Because the Supercell acquisition was really about mobile and things like this. But this is like, an entire publisher. Microsoft bought an entire publisher. It blew my mind whenever I saw this announcement. At the time, it was shocking. In retrospect, I think it's less shocking in terms of not that it happened, but like I can see why this deal happened. I absolutely can see it. When it first dropped, I was like, oh my God, am I reading this correctly?
I did the same thing. I refreshed. I was like, okay, there's got to be like a deal for a game I'm missing. Like, this isn't actually what I think it is.
Yeah, so it blew my mind. It brings Microsoft up to 23 studios, like you mentioned. I think, this isn't like insider info or anything, but just looking at the direction Microsoft's going, I will not be surprised to see 30 studios for Microsoft eventually. I don't think that they're done at all by any means. In fact, Satya just recently came out and basically said that. So as impressive as 23 is, we're not done yet. So I think that's pretty incredible. I think it's going to add massive value to the Xbox brand. It wasn't a coincidence. They announced this one day before pre-orders went up, right? This isn't a deal that comes together one day before, right? This was a deal that had been locked in for a little bit now, or at least, it's still not technically locked in until next year, but it's all a signed, agreed thing. It's been that way for a little bit now if they announced it the day before. So the timing was not a coincidence. Microsoft knew how much this could push the needle. We're talking about them owning the Elder Scrolls IP, which Skyrim is the best-selling single-player RPG of all time. In the entire history of the video game industry, no RPG that's single-player, not counting MMOs, have ever sold as much as Skyrim. Fallout shipped 12 million copies day one. The day it came out, it shipped 12 million units.
People forget how big Fallout is.
It's So you're talking Microsoft acquiring some of the biggest IP in the entire gaming industry. So it's an incredible move. The fact these are going to be on Game Pass day one is insane. I don't see how you can not be a Game Pass subscriber now, like moving forward. If you're someone that's like big into games, which I think is Microsoft's goal, right? They're trying to make Game Pass undeniable value to the point where it's like it's hard to even make an excuse to not have it if you have access to it, right? Yes. So giant in all of those regards. In terms of the exclusivity thing, I do not think Starfield's going to PlayStation. I don't think Elder Scrolls is going to PlayStation. I don't think Fallout's going to PlayStation. I really, truly don't. At first, I felt differently. When this very first was announced, I was like, hey, Elder Scrolls and Fallout, these IP are too big, I feel like, to keep off of one PlayStation platform. But the thing I keep coming back to is $7.5 billion. Mm-hmm. You don't spend that kind of money unless you are trying to fuel your ecosystem. And for Microsoft, that's what it's all about. It's all about ecosystem. That doesn't mean that they don't care about console sales, because you see some people say that, oh, Microsoft doesn't care if people buy Xboxes. No, they want people to buy Xboxes, but their end game goal is no matter what to have as many people in their ecosystem as possible. And putting a game on PlayStation does not enter them into Game Pass. It does not enter them into Xbox Live. It does not integrate them into anything to do with Microsoft besides a quick sale up front. I think, like you said, Microsoft, the reason you're not seeing Phil say everything's exclusive is because he wants to give himself that option and give Microsoft that option that if they do feel a game makes sense being multi-platform, if it does make sense putting it on Switch or PlayStation or PC, that is available to them without being quote, quote, called a liar, right? If he says everything's exclusive right now and down the road, they do decide to make something multi-platform, well, suddenly you'll have people screaming, Phil, you're a liar. You lied about this. So I think it's more just giving themselves that option. If they want to go that route with a game, they can. But I think you're going to see the vast majority of Bethesda games be exclusive to Xbox and PC. I really do think you're going to see the majority of games go that way.
No, it's all about money at the end of the day.
Yeah. And the thing I say is, like, if it wasn't about eventually having most games exclusive, they could have just signed an EA Play type deal. They could have just said, hey, Bethesda, here's a ton of money for a Game Pass deal in your games. That's exactly what they did with EA Play. if you're going to buy an entire, you're outright buying them. That means you want control. You want control of what's going to happen with that publisher. So, I'd be surprised. I'll be honest. At this point, I would be surprised if you see Starfield and Elder Scrolls on PlayStation, for example.
Yeah, I think Starfield, based on what we saw this week, it feels like Starfield may be closer than we realized. And I think because that could come earlier in the generation, it's almost a no-brainer that it be exclusive.
Yeah,
because it's going to be highly anticipated, heavily marketed, and because it'll be so early in next gen, that can make it be a difference maker. So I think it's gonna be fun to watch for sure. Just real quick, Dan, I just want to throw this up because Benji just said ecosystem twice, and it made me like smile internally because I was joking, Benji, that I found myself, the more I write about this stuff, especially Microsoft, right? It literally is all about ecosystem. That's what it is. And I find myself saying it all the time. So I told Dan last week, I think on the show, I was like, I think I've said ecosystem like 10 times. So I'm just going to keep saying it.
Yeah. I was checking out your new article, and I was like, okay, let's see how many times he uses this word. Not too many. You actually did a really good job.
I spend a lot of time on my articles.
I said ecosystem twice.
It's actually funny because when I first started writing, I would do that. You don't realize when you write, you tend to lean towards adjectives, specific adjectives. So like I would go back and read an article and I would have said like amazing like 9 times. And it's like, God damn, I need a different word than amazing. You don't realize that when you first start writing.
For sure. But so if your theory is true and Starfield is farther along in development than we think, say we could see it next year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think we will see it next year.
Yeah, I think it's holiday 2021.
Nice. I don't know how the development process works really. So is it possible that they've already been developing that for the PlayStation side?
Oh, well,
for sure.
Yeah. So you think that they would just
stop
the hell with it?
Yeah. Happened with Gears of War. Epic made an entire version that will run on PlayStation 3 and never released it.
True. They released the footage of that recently, right?
They did it as an engine test in case that ever went multi-platform because Microsoft didn't own the IP at the time. It was just a publishing deal. So they developed a Gears of War 3 that'll run on PlayStation in case they took that IP multi-platform besides Microsoft locked it before Microsoft locked it down. So I'm sure it's in development for PlayStation, but if it goes the way I think, they'll just set that to the side now.
Well, having that focus on just that one system will probably help, not only speed up development and it just will, I think. I mean, I like I said, I don't know if I'm sure most of these games are developed primarily on PC with, and then moved over or however. That's what I'm guessing. I have no clue.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
Asa, damn it.
What?
What's up, Asa? What's up, Kev? A bunch of regulars. Asa says he's increased his resolution to see if I'm dribbling. No, I'm not dribbling. I'm functioning just fine. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, Benji, I mean, I think I'm more of the, let's see what happens. Markets change all the time, I'm sure, and I would guess, we kind of talked about this last week, that most of these games are going to be exclusive to Xbox. I have no problem with that because I'm sunk into the GPU for 5 years now, so I'm good. It doesn't bother me one bit. But I can also see different versions where games could potentially come to it, but at the same time, if I was betting, I'm kind of on the same wavelength. That would probably be, But like I said last week, also Phil is a far better businessman than any of us. So he's going to make and it could be all PR speak. It could be just him being cautious. I have no clue. All I know is I'm going to be playing Starfield and I'm going to be playing Skyrim.
Well, and again, right? This is the best argument for just owning all the systems. I mean, you don't have to worry about it. I don't care where it launches. I'm going to play the best version.
My thing is if Game Pass was on PlayStation, you can bet your butt that these games would 100% be on PlayStation. But the fact Game Pass isn't, the thing is like Microsoft almost is going to be forced to play the exclusivity game because PlayStation is out there locking down a lot of third-party exclusives.
Third parties.
We have some announced, and there are some big ones that are still unannounced, and we've already gotten games like Final Fantasy 16 is announced. It's almost one of those things that Microsoft, in my opinion, will be handicapping themselves if they don't lock some of these down, because Sony's not playing the same game as them. And Sony is going to be locking down literally everything they can. Like, if from what I've heard, and I'm not a super insider, but from some of the people I've talked about, they're going around everywhere trying to lock stuff down. So I feel like Microsoft is strong play. They, especially now that, like we talked about, they don't have Halo at launch. They're going to need some exclusive games hitting in that first year or two. And if Starfield really is 2021, I think they're going to need it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a very fair point. Especially, I mean, we talk about industry kind of shaking games. At some point here in the next couple of years, we're going to see Grand Theft Auto 6. And that's going to be one of those games that does that. So it will be very interesting to see. We do have a comment, $10 super chat from $10 super chat from Case by Case Basis. So what's up, man? He said, do you think Sony knew about this Xbox deal? And that's why they tried pinning down Starfield's exclusivity. The moment Microsoft bought Bethesda, Starfield was immediately mentioned. So I think what he's asking here is, did they know about this deal obviously a long time ago? Because this deal stretched back at least 2 years from what we know now, right? Did they know about it ahead of time? And that's why they tried to lock down the timed exclusivity with Starfield that was brought up this week, like they did with Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo, right? So it's a good question. I don't know. It's pure speculation, really.
One thing I can say about this is I can't go super into detail, but it was a known thing behind the scenes that Bethesda was up for sale. Yeah. I don't think that they necessarily knew that Microsoft locked it down. I think that part probably very few people knew, considering it didn't leak at all. Like there was zero leaks that it was until they announced it that it was a done deal. So this part is pure speculation, but I'm speculating they had no idea that Microsoft actually had it locked down. But what I can say is Sony definitely knew that Bethesda was being shopped for sure.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think I was joking with someone. I think it was Bomber actually joking yesterday that, we hear all this speculation about acquisitions, right? And now there's a whole bunch of Bungie rumor going around now. And I said, what's funny about all these speculations is none of these speculations have come true that we've heard over the past year plus. The only one that actually happened was the one that nobody heard about. With Bethesda. You know what I mean? So just take everything with a grain of salt as you see people talking about these things.
For sure.
Damn it, there was one other thing I was just gonna say too, and I forget. Cool Kill said, is Starfield going to be like the Mass Effect style of play? And we don't really know yet. They haven't shown it fully, Cool Kill, but what we do know, speculation is it's Todd Howard's team, right? So you've got your Skyrim and your Fallout team, or Elder Scrolls and Fallout team. So the speculation is it's going to be either third or first person RPG in that vein, open world RPG in the sci-fi universe. That's really all we know. Benji, I don't know if you've heard anything else.
No, I've seen the quote leaked screenshots that people are claiming are real. I have no idea if that's real or not. The claim is that those are 2 years old, so the game could look a lot different now, right? If that is legit, I mean, 2 years, a game can change a lot in 2 years. So, but like you said, the only things we know for sure is it's an RPG. It's gonna be set in some sort of sci-fi space setting. But yeah, we don't know a ton more than that. I'm guessing we'll probably see it, not too far from now. I saw that interview that Todd did, with Phil and Major Nelson, and was talking about how he likes to wait as long as possible to show a game. So if this really is 2021, I don't think it's shocking that we haven't seen it yet, because Todd himself said he wants to wait until as close to launch as possible. But truth is, we don't know if it's going to play like Mass Effect or what the play style is going to be like.
No, we don't. I didn't hear. So I was just about to say that those Starfield screenshots, if they're real, they were obviously very almost environmental screenshots, right? Definitely an artist perspective. So when you just said I hadn't heard that they were 2 years old, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
When I saw them, I'm like, they could be, but that's certainly nothing even close to what would be called a game.
Yeah,
right?
the person that leaked them, one thing they followed up with was saying that supposedly, again, this is assuming this is real. They said it was 2-year old, so the game could look completely different nowadays. Yeah. That's quite a ways back.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Another super chat. It's a new viewer, I think. So welcome, man, Celegrim. With all the acquisitions,
he's one of my. My buddies. Yeah.
Welcome to the Bitcast, man. So, with all the acquisitions going on, what are the odds of cross-platform play ever being a thing in the future? So, you guys can happily talk about this. I think cross-platform play it's slowly coming, right? We're starting to see it out of the bigger publishers and those studios like Epic Games that have the foundation and server infrastructure to support it. In fact, Rocket League, with their free-to-play update from last week or a week and a half ago, is now full cross-play across all platforms. Master Chief Collection is going cross-play between Xbox One and PC soon. Obviously, again, that's internal to Microsoft. I would assume what Celegrim's asking, right, is full cross-platform play from PlayStation and Xbox is the one everyone wants. We did see that in Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, but again, the money that they have and their infrastructure is very different from just smaller games or even AA games being on each platform. So I think it will come, but it's still going to be some time before we see that out of most games, is what I would say. Open to you guys.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are doing it. I mean, they're kind of slowly going towards it, right? Like Rainbow Six Siege will be cross-platform here next year, according to Ubisoft.
Again, though, another big publisher who has the resources to do that.
Right. Yeah. But a lot of games like Squadrons, they launched with cross-platform support. That's once like FIFA and Madden start coming to these, get that cross-platform, then you're going to start seeing, a lot more of people, because I've always, said that it's people that buy their systems usually. It's going to be based on a few things. It's going to be price. It's going to be, where their friends are at, where you've been for however long. There's a lot of things that go towards that.
The ecosystem, it's known as.
So anyway, skipping over that word. But it's once a guy that's been playing, FIFA on PlayStation, say for forever, and then they see, okay, I can actually play with my friends still through, now that's an EA thing, and I don't know what's taking them so long. And now there's been rumors I know I've seen about hopefully it going to a cross-platform format. So once we get to that point, I think then you start getting these things merging together where it's not going to matter where you play. It's going to be more about price. It's like, I can just get this for $300 or $250 on sale or whatever, still be able to play with all my friends that are playing on PlayStation. Once those big games, Call of Duty is one of them, and that one's there, so that's a huge thing for the next generation. So I don't know, man. As far as what I don't want to see is like a complete consolidation of the industry where, it's just like these games are here, and that's it. You're not going to see it with like these bigger games, obviously, but Bethesda would have stepped in that direction.
Companies acquiring all of the publishers and just siloed. It'd be called siloed.
Yeah, I don't want to see that. That's the one thing I look at this whole thing and go, gosh, Microsoft could literally go out and buy anything they want right now. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, for them, in the long run, but they absolutely could, and it would just kill the competition, I think. And that's why Microsoft is where they're at today, is because they, Sony pushed them all generation, and they made these moves to counteract that, and they've done an amazing job. So once you lose that competition, you kind of rest on your laurels, like these peanutty dudes at Sony that just decided, we're good. We're just going to keep doing our thing. And then now they're realizing, oh crap, look where we're at now, and we're not seeing anything. It's just, it's a mess, man, on their side right now. So.
Yeah. Right now it seems like cross platforms for like the ones that really can throw their weight around, like you
Yes.
said, like the Activisions with Call of Duty, or like the, Rocket Leagues, the ones with, tens of millions of players. So I think it's one of those things that's going to be kind of a case by case basis and not like a universal thing, at least for the near future. Hopefully one day the vast majority of games are just going to be cross play. I don't want to see full consolidation either, but I do think it's nice if I have an Xbox, I can play with a PlayStation buddy. But right now, at least, it seems like it's only the really biggest multiplayer games that can kind of force them into that. I'm sure behind the scenes they're making some comments like, "Hey, let my game be cross play." So my biggest hope is I hope Overwatch 2 has it, because I'm a giant Overwatch fan, and it drives me crazy that none of my Overwatch stuff transfers. Like, it drives me completely crazy.
Which is weird, because Blizzard would be one of those companies that could easily do this. Well, maybe not easily, but you know what I mean? They could do it.
Yeah, so I really hope Overwatch 2 in particular implements this, because that is one thing that bums me out, is like, because I play it on PlayStation, but I'd love to play it on PC and stuff sometimes too, but none of my stuff transfers. Yeah. So it's just frustrating.
Yeah, gotcha. Phasma, she's starting, Dan. Damn Lego Star Wars game.
Damn it.
Thank you for the super chat. So I don't think I've seen him today, but for whatever reason, for like a several week stretch, Benji, we had someone who would come in to our chat and ask us about Lego Star Wars every single show, whether it was nonstop and just constantly. So I told him, I said, because I think what happened was we did a video at E3 last year on the behind the scenes backdoor, thing of it. And he's like, "Oh, these guys know what's going on." So then it was like every week. Like, I don't have any news, man. I don't know.
That's something with burp.
Yes. Z Black, what's up, brother? Z Black says, "Damn, it was only a year ago we were joking ZeniMax at $4.5 billion was too much." Yeah, and we didn't really touch on that, right? The actual cost of $7.5 billion, because
that's a lot of damn money, man.
From what I've been told from people that are very in the weeds on this, that Microsoft definitely overpaid. But that was an intentional thing. Like, I think Microsoft knew they were overpaying market value as well. It was one of those things, like, to lock it down, you're just going to have to do it. But it does. From what I have heard from speaking to people that are strictly in the business side of things, they have said that it was over market valuation.
Yeah, I saw the same.
Which isn't uncommon for an acquisition. A lot of times you got to pay over, the quote worth to lock it in.
Well, it's the same thing that was said about Mohang, right? I mean, when they locked down Minecraft and that future development, is that, wow, is that really worth that much money? I would argue several years later that Minecraft is it was a smart investment. And when I think Elder Scrolls 6 hits, and Fallout 5 and the new Doom and all these other games that we know are going to be developed now, and when they sell tens and tens and tens of millions of copies and Game Pass has 40 million subscribers, the $7.5 billion won't be a conversation anymore. Lastly, one more super chat to get to. Case by case basis. Thank you again, man. Not sure who you are, but I really appreciate the super chats. One game no one is talking about that'll blindside everyone is Initiative's Perfect Dark, big bullet in the chamber from Microsoft. So definitely hope you stop by more often, case by case, because we actually have talked about that quite a bit here on Bitcast, including even Jeff Grubb mentioning a couple weeks ago on one of the kind of funny Twitch streams that it is Perfect Dark. That is the game they're working on. And, we've talked at length here about what we think that game can be. And we absolutely agree that this can be a very, very impactful game for Xbox, especially considering the want that's out there for Splinter Cell that Ubisoft just seemingly refuses to make. So if they do this game right, big budget, third party, stealth, gadgets, all that stuff, good story, this can be a monster of an IP return. I would argue, very different situations, but IP return, I mean, like we saw with God of War for PlayStation. I don't think anyone foresaw God of War having that level of impact when it came back, but it did.
It's too good.
Yeah.
Yeah. like I said, if we talked about like if it came back as a completely revamped IP, I mean, I'm down, man. Let's
It's
do
gonna
it,
be.
man.
I mean, it's gonna be brand new. We've talked about it, right? The other game,
Yeah.
no one remembers the 360 game.
Oh,
That game
I
just
remember it.
lost in
It's
history.
terrible.
And
So
the
bad.
original is 25 years old. Man, I mean, it's just
God,
Yeah,
that-
Perfect Dark's one of those IP I have like zero attachment to. I've actually never played a Perfect Dark game. I know that's blasphemy to some people, but
you're not missing anything, especially nowadays.
yeah, so that's one of those that for me personally, I don't feel hyped for, except for the talent that's behind it that Initiative's been hiring for. So I think that's one, like you just mentioned, I think that's one reason you're not necessarily seeing people go crazy over it is, like you said, hardly anyone remembers the 360 game. The original was very long ago. So I agree, though, it very well could surprise people when we see it, because it's probably going to look nothing like what Perfect Dark used to. It's going to be kind of like a full-on reboot.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, I've said before too that Joanna Dark as a character can be a really big kind of icon if they do it right. Just like Aloy has grown into for PlayStation. I definitely see similarities there. So, man, thank you guys for the super chats today. So, sorry, Dan, I looked over at the notes and I'm like, that bullet wasn't there a minute ago. What
no, I
did you
just
add?
threw it on there because it just broke.
Oh,
It's a quick hit.
Hot Pursuit Remastered will be announced on Monday. Okay, we've heard rumors of that, right? So,
Right, yeah.
Eurogamer saying officially it's going to be announced Monday. And I know Hot Pursuit is one of the Need for Speeds that is beloved by that fan base. So
100%
pretty cool.
my favorite one.
Was it?
So, yep.
Okay.
I'm ready for it, man. Another freaking remaster or whatever.
Breaking news live on Bitcast. There you go. All right. Yeah. One more thing from a news perspective to touch on. And Benji, I definitely want to get your feel on this one because it was kind of funny with the Super Smash Brothers, reveal event. They had the new character and everything with Super Smash Brothers in the event, right? And Sakurai comes on and that fan base is massive.
Oh, yeah.
So it was kind of interesting. I know people hoping for all sorts of different characters. And what we got was Steve from Minecraft, which I think there's two camps on. The one camp is if you're a dedicated Smash Brothers Nintendo guy, you're always seemingly happy. So we'll leave that aside. But I think the one camp was out of all the characters that could have been added to Smash Brothers, you chose Minecraft characters, which in reality don't have a personality. Right. There's no kind of hardcore people out there that look at Steve as or Alex or the Enderman, and what was it? The zombie, I think, as hardcore characters. But on the flip side of that, it's Minecraft. It's a game that is played by 26 million people a month. One of the best selling games of all time, known globally as one of the biggest IPs in gaming. And so combining that with a game that already has a massive user base like Smash Brothers is an obvious big thing, right? So doesn't matter to me. I don't play the game. And I haven't really talked to too many people about this, but what are your thoughts from again, I keep saying market perspective. Sorry about that. But what are your personal thoughts on this when you saw it?
Yeah, so strictly in terms of a business decision, it was probably the best move they've ever made with a DLC character. It has more views than any DLC character Smash has ever had already. And it only was announced like 2 days ago. And 600,000 people were watching the stream today on it. So it's one of those things that Minecraft is way bigger than the gaming bubble, like way bigger. Minecraft's one of those games that even if you aren't a gamer, you know what Minecraft is. I could go up to my dad and who plays 0 games, and he would know the word Minecraft. He might not know exactly what it is, but he knows, oh yeah, Minecraft, that's the game all the kids are playing, right? So I totally get why hardcore Nintendo fans, some of them are very upset, and I get it, because if you look through Nintendo's massive library of games, there's just so many characters you can pull from. So if you're like a beloved Nintendo fan, I get why there is some people that are upset at this choice. But in terms of, like you said, like the marketing and the business side, I mean, it makes sense because we're already seeing gigantic numbers for this reveal. So clearly it's hit outside of, even as big as the Smash bubble is, I think it's hitting even outside of that. So it was a very smart business move. But I get why there are some people that are like, dude, where's my Xenoblade 2 characters or all the other IP that Nintendo has?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the ones that nobody really knows except for like certain.
Right. That's exactly why Nintendo went this route because, like you said, no, these Minecraft characters don't really have personality, but people know what a creeper is. People know what an Enderman is. Like it's just one of those things that's instantly recognizable.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, you don't need like Stan from a game that was released 17 years ago. It's like, oh well, yeah, I've been wanting him since No, I mean this is awesome. I haven't played Smash forever. Obviously, there's a humongous diehard community for it, and like you guys said, this is a great addition just for the recognition on it alone. I will never play it probably. I played it when it came out. I played quite a bit of it, but then I just stopped. And I haven't played any of the DLC characters, to be honest with you. But I couldn't even tell you who they are except for this one. That's how
Banjo. Get it together.
Fuck Banjo. You know what I'm saying. Anyway, so it's fantastic. It's a great, it's nice to see these two companies kind of working together too again, and it's going to be huge, man. Everybody loves it.
There does seem to be an interesting kind of open relationship with Nintendo and Xbox nowadays. It is kind of interesting to watch, and my perspective, and this is again just a thought, but my perspective is that it feels like Xbox knows they can be successful on that platform with certain games, Cuphead, Ori. We've seen Minecraft's another one, of course, that's successful everywhere. But it's generating revenue in various ways there, but they don't feel like a direct competitor. That would be my perspective. Would you agree on that? It's like Xbox doesn't have to worry about Switch being someone's not buying a Switch and then saying, I have a Switch, I don't need an Xbox or Game Pass or anything else, right? It's an indirect competitor, and therefore why not financially benefit from that platform?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. It's one of those things that I think Microsoft looks at them and Nintendo, even in a joking way, everyone says Nintendo's going to Nintendo. They completely do their own thing.
We've tried to figure it out for years. We've been unsuccessful.
Yeah, Nintendo's like their own bubble in the gaming space that's not really like anyone else. So I feel like Microsoft is just like, hey, they're not a threat to us in terms of Nintendo's giant. But like you said, I don't think someone buys a Switch and is like, I'm never buying an Xbox now specifically because I have a Switch. Whereas with PlayStation, there is a lot more parallels between the systems. As much as they are, starting to diverge, they still do have a lot of parallels as well. And I also think behind the scenes, this isn't insider info, I have no idea, but just the vibe I get is that they just get along better behind the scenes. Nintendo and Microsoft. Feel like there's a relationship there. Yeah, it just feels like they get along good. I know Phil's even said he's had meetings with top Nintendo executives about Minecraft and stuff because they see themselves as a third party on that specific platform with that. So I just think they have more of a relationship than on the Sony side. I think Sony particularly sees Microsoft fiercely as a competitor. I think more so even than Microsoft views Sony. I think Sony really, really views Microsoft as a competitor. So I just think the relationship's a lot better with Nintendo.
Yeah, 100% agree. Celegrim said, thank you again, Celegrim, for the super chats. I appreciate it, brother. He said, should we worry the next DLC character is a Fortnite character?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it is. And hey, probably before yesterday or Thursday, whenever it was, I probably would have said that doesn't seem likely. Now that we've seen Minecraft, you never know, man. Fortnite is everywhere.
That is a great question. I would have never thought about that yesterday, but now I'm like, maybe.
Yeah. Epic would do it. I mean, they do it in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
So that's funny. I know some people I see were hoping for Master Chief because of that Xbox relationship to see Master Chief in Smash Brothers. And I was saying if I didn't buy it for Banjo, I was close. I almost bought it one day. I was like, but if they had Master Chief and Banjo, I'd have to buy it. I think there's a law somewhere that would say I'd have to buy it at that point. All right, so before we just covered new releases, we are going to hit grinding our gears this week. Though, Dan, I did have something earlier in the week I was thinking about. But, Benji, we do a segment on here where we added, which is we're a pretty friendly, open podcast. We don't rant about things too much. But we added a section where if there's something that's come up in the week that's really driven you crazy for whatever reason, this is your kind of let it out section. So yeah, so if there's anything that is top of mind and you know annoying you in some facet, feel free to go for it. Dan, you're on mute, so
I'm on mute because my son keeps slamming his door. Whatever it is, go for it. Don't even care if it's gaming related. Get it out, man. This is your
doesn't
time
have to be gamer. Do you have to have something, Dan?
Oh, I'll let Benji go. You know, he's our guest.
For me with the grinding the gears, the thing I've been feeling heavily lately, and I know other people with decent sized social media followings right now is, my God, the console war heat right now is just unreal. I mean, it is unbelievable how much the console war fires are stirred up right now. It is ridiculous. Like, and I get it. We're really close to a next gen launch. This Bethesda thing really triggered a lot of people.
I was stoking the fire.
Yeah, that triggered a lot of people. So it's hit the point where lately I'm a pretty laid back guy, but it's like every single post I make is just console wars. And it's like, it's exhausting. I've started to have to mute some of my own tweets so I don't get alerts on some of the console wars. So the grinding my gears lately is specifically that. I don't mind people that are like really big fans of one platform. That doesn't bother me at all, right? If you just really love PlayStation or you really love Xbox or Nintendo,
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all. It's the people that are just like, Xbox is trash, PlayStation is terrible. It's like, it has become overwhelming like the last couple weeks. So if I could say anything, I am ready for these consoles to come out. So hopefully things chill out even a little bit.
It's funny because we've had on our show. So last week we had Mr. Badbit, who is host of the Trophy Room podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic show, guest, super nice guy. Talks about PlayStation nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but does that in the way it should be done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side, we've had Insipid Ghost on here multiple times. Luke Lore, who does the Xbox Expansion Pass podcast. Same thing. Talks about Xbox all the time, but does so how it should be done. There's nothing wrong with loving a platform. But for God's sakes, man, I'm with you. These guys, it's just out of control.
Yeah.
And these are grown men in theory.
Yeah. And there's always, you know, a bit of the console wars floating around, right? Like always. But man, it seems like the last couple weeks, really ever since the Bethesda thing. It's since Bethesda and the pre-order started, it's been just chaos.
Dan, what you got? Did you come with something this week?
Not really. I'm just, you know, I was going to say this.
Just going to think out loud for a couple minutes.
Yeah. First of all, I just got a text from my wife. We're going to a wedding today, which I'd rather be punched in the face. And it says, "Will you bring a serving spoon with the meat like a bachelor?" I don't know what that means. I don't know if she went text to speech. First of all, it's pulled pork, so you're going to need a tongs. The serving spoon isn't going to work. Second of all, I had to basically make 25 pounds of pulled pork yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
For this wedding for my in-laws that I don't particularly like. They're very, very selfish people. I don't think they really understand like how this whole thing works. Like if you offer to do something for them, you don't get to choose how that person does something. My poor sister-in-law has to take pictures. They sent her a list, a humongous list of pictures that they want taken. She's doing this for free, mind you. She was just going to take some pictures. She's got stuff on there like groom nervously ties his tie at the altar, right? Or like people, you know, guests coming into the event and shit like that. And when I saw that kind of stuff, I about lost my stuff. Now I have to get ready to go here in about 10 minutes and get the food warmed up because it's outside. It's going to be like 40 degrees. You know, they have no heaters in this open air barn or whatever it is that this thing's going to be at. The ceremony is going to be literally 5 minutes because they're doing their nuptials away from everybody, like separately, like not even like social distancing. It's like completely separate event. All right. I don't know what's going on here. I know my mother-in-law has done a whole bunch of stuff for it. And these people are so like, they're the nicest people, but they are so clueless on just like social graces. Like you just don't understand. You stop being so dumb. You know, understand that these people are doing this out of the kindness of their heart for free. And yet here you are just making this list of basically demands. All right. I've got this pork. It's not there yet. I don't have to go. You know, it's this is the kind of stuff that just it grinds my gears. I'm just going to be honest with you.
You nailed it.
And I nailed it. Yep. And I'm also here's a funny little anecdote to that story. We did like a Christmas. We every Christmas we just pick somebody's name out of the hat, right? We do $50. You know, these people that are getting married got my son like a $10 Longhorn Steakhouse gift card, right? And then I got this hat, which I wish I had it on me right now. It's the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. It would cost about $5 at Kohl's. All right. It's literally an inside joke now, but with everybody in her family aside from them. So I'm thinking about wearing it to the wedding, you know, because when I got the thing, like we open up the gifts, you ever get like something you're just like, oh, this is so nice, and you got to put on this huge fake smile.
We've all been there.
It's 100% wool, and 100% polyester, and 100% whatever. It's the most uncomfortable, scratchy goddamn thing I've ever put on my goddamn head. It's been sitting on my nightstand for I don't know how long. So I told my wife, I said, this is what we do. We take every one of those pictures that your sister has to take, and we plant the hat in the back of, you know, like in like a bush or something where it shows up, or we Photoshop it in every single picture that we send them. And then we're good. I'm wearing it as soon as I walk in. I'm going to carry this pork, like this 25 pounds of pork. I'm going to walk in with this hat on and then like a nice shirt. I'm also wearing jeans because that's about how fancy this place is. It's a barn, for God's sakes. Anyway, I just have to get that off my chest. Go gaming.
Do you feel better?
Yep. Feel good.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
By the way, where were we? Cool Kill says Pool Park is fire. Yes, we are both in Kansas City, and I got a new smoker recently. Dan is going to need to teach me how to use it properly. But yes, it's all about barbecue here in Kansas City.
Yeah, I get way more excited
Kansas
for
City, Midwest like me.
Oh, where you at?
I keep that under wraps.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll talk offline. That's fine.
All right, really quick shout out, DE. Look at that. You just won the second month.
I was just going to tell you to do the second month. So awesome. DE, congrats, man.
Yep.
If you didn't catch us earlier, DE, just DM me, Porsche Power, on Twitter, and I'll get you that code later today. Okay, man. Congrats.
Boom.
All right. Real quick on the grinding our gears, and then we'll just cover new releases. Grinding gears. I'm just going to call out all access pre-ordering. I'm going to do Bomber.
Oh, that's nice, man.
Because all access was a very good program in theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get 2 years, $25 or $35 a month to get your Series X or S. When pre-orders happened, they didn't separate all access from normal pre-orders. So all hell broke loose, as we all know, with pre-orders. But people like Bomber, one of our regulars here, part of the SG community, he not only got confirmation that the whole credit check went through to get this application filed, but still to this day, to this moment, he doesn't have a console lockdown. And they're supposed to be following up with these people to give them another opportunity to get a console. He still hasn't gotten an email, still doesn't know what's happening. Had this bounce against his credit. It's just a disaster. And it's like, it shouldn't have been that way. If you got through, as soon as you got through the all access credit, the console should have been reserved automatically. That just doesn't make any damn sense. So anyone else who is feeling the burn from this all access or got burned by this, please reach out to me. Because it's something we need to keep talking about until they make it right.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people had issues with that.
Yeah, because all it was the normal pre-orders. It was just a purchasing option. And so you imagine, oh God, we all know how the pre-orders went, like we were talking about earlier. It was a mess. So, just a mess. Anyway, new releases we'll cover real quick. So we've got Crash Bandicoot 4 that came out, getting rave reviews, which is awesome to see. And Star Wars Squadrons, which I know, Dan, you said you're really, really loving so far. And then while you were on, Benji, I was not paying attention to it at all, but we have Genshin Impact, which apparently has blown up, right?
Yeah.
So kind of an interesting thing, but I'd like to hear your comment, Benji, on Genshin Impact so the audience kind of knows a little more about it, but also, what you're currently playing, what you're currently getting into.
Yeah. Yeah. So Genshin Impact, wow. This is the biggest global launch ever for a Chinese game. So, wow.
Awesome.
I mean, crazy performance. It had just in pre registrations over 21 million people pre registered for this game. That's insane. Now, it is free to play, of course. So that's going to boost those numbers. That's not 21 million sales, but that's just so crazy that they got that much interest in it. It's doing really big in the West, outside of China. Even outside of China, it had over 5 million pre-registrations, and there's going to be more than that of people that are actually playing it. So I saw Game Informer just gave it, I think, a 9.25 out of 10. Yeah, it's like, I've been playing it. It's really good for a free to play game, like shockingly so.
What type of game is it exactly? I haven't looked at it at all.
It's basically like what it reminds me of, at least, is if you took like a JRPG, like a Tales of game or something like that, and you put it in a Breath of the Wild type world. Yeah, it's a giant open world game. It's action-based combat, like kind of almost hack and slashy, but you can switch between characters on the fly, and they have different powers and abilities. It does not feel like a free-to-play game at all. It feels like you're playing a full-on game. It's pretty impressive, to be honest with you. Now, you'd have to be into that type of game. I would say if you're someone that doesn't like JRPGs at all, you probably wouldn't like it. But if you like that type of game, the Tales of or Ni no Kuni or Final Fantasy, something like this, I think you could probably definitely get into it, and it's free to download. So yeah, shout out to that game doing crazy numbers.
So where's their revenue stream then?
So since it's free to play, you can basically buy. It's like a gacha game, the same way a lot of Asian developed games are. You draw random rolls of characters and stuff because, like I said, you can use different characters and switch on them. And the way you get those characters is through character pulls. It's just like a random, basically. It's like a lotto machine. Yeah, and it's going to give you characters. What's interesting though is you can play this game a lot and never touch that ever. I mean, there's people I've been seeing that I haven't spent a single cent on this game. And I know people that have played like already 20 plus hours and they haven't bought a single thing. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you want to pour money into it, you absolutely can. It basically gates you off on certain areas, like unless you have like really good characters or levels or something like that for like the end game. But yeah, you can play this game for a ton and never spend money on it, but that's where they'll get their money. They're going to get their money through character pull, which gives you items and stuff too. It's like basically think of it as a loot box. And yeah, exactly. And the best thing in the loot box is a new character, but you'll also get weapons and armor and things like this. Yeah. So that's where the revenue comes from.
Interesting, man. That's it's
a big surprise. It's a big surprise for sure.
So you said you've been playing that. What else you been up to?
I've been playing Yakuza 0 on Xbox.
Now you're in Dan's camp.
So I played 0 for a bit on the PS4 back when it very first came out. I played, I can't remember, maybe like 10 or 15 hours of it. And I was digging the vibe, but I did not really like the gameplay. It just wasn't quite clicking with me. But I wanted to give it another shot because I see so many people love it. And I do remember, like, I really liked the vibe of it. So I re-downloaded that, Kiwami 1 and 2 on Game Pass. And I'll tell you what, it's really clicking right now. I'm playing Yakuza 0 right now, and I am loving it. It's so silly and over the top. But at the same time, has a great story, right? I feel like people really talk about how crazy the game is because it is. It's completely crazy. But the core story is actually really good too. So I'll still say I don't exactly love the gameplay. I don't think it's terrible. It's just not one of those things where I'm like, man, this play is so good. But I think the story and the characters and stuff really carry it. So I'm enjoying it. I've basically been playing that, Genshin Impact, and Overwatch. I mean, I play Overwatch almost every single day.
Yeah, I saw you had Overwatch in your 4 top 10s that everyone has been posting. I was like, I didn't expect that, but yeah.
I literally play Overwatch since beta almost every day of my life.
What?
I'm a freak. When it goes and I watch Overwatch League, I'm an Overwatch fanatic.
That's awesome though.
Yeah, it's great.
I should have wore the
Do you
shirt.
have the I don't know if you're into this kind of stuff. Do you do collector's editions or collectibles or anything like that?
So I used to do a lot of collector's editions, but I've backed off of it a lot in the last couple of years. I used to like crazy. I worked for GameStop for a really long time. I worked in management at GameStop. So when I was there, I mean, I was pre-ordering every single collector's edition I could get my hands on. Nowadays, I'm more selective with it. I'll still do, collector's editions and figures and stuff. Like I got the Final Fantasy VII Remake collector's edition. Yeah. So I'll still do it, but now I'm a little bit more selective on which games I do it on.
I only ask because I'm pretty sure I have the Overwatch collector's edition with these Soldier 76 statue and that really nice art book sitting around, and I literally have it set aside to sell.
Oh wow, yeah. So you get tons, right? You get tons of statues and stuff, right?
Endless amounts of stuff. So yeah, I mean,
I see you posting about it a bunch.
Yeah, if that's something you want, man, I'll just give it to you. That'd be.
Oh wow.
So we'll talk offline. I'll hook you up. Celegrins, dude, I appreciate the super chats. Truly, I really do. But you didn't have to have a super chat just to ask Benji to play a game with you, man. I appreciate the $5, but
I will hit you up for sure, man. I need to get up there because it has co-op once you get high enough level.
That's awesome. Nice. That's awesome. So thank you again, Celegrim. Really appreciate it, man. Dan, Squadrons, tell us about it.
It's awesome. This is like people have to understand. Like my love for Star Wars is about equal to my love for gaming. So when these two kind of things come together, and then you're adding in the fact that it's a flight game, which back with the X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, just X-Wing, X-Wing Alliance back in the day on the PC, those were my games. I loved them. So I've been waiting. And battle, you got Battlefront, but it was never up to that standard where it was more simulation. And this one is, I played a few online matches. I played some of the tutorials. I played maybe 4 or 5 missions, and it is money. I mean, I'm even playing on not easy mode. I'm playing on normal mode. It's crazy. That's how good. Yeah, that's how good this game is. Yeah, yeah, it's craziness.
That's good, man. I'm glad it turned out well because we've joked for a while. I was in the alpha for it, and it didn't play well in the alpha. So obviously, whatever they released to us was a pretty old build. So that's good to hear.
I'm seeing a ton of people saying they're loving it.
Oh yeah, it's on VR. I got PlayStation VR and the Flight Stick, and that takes a minute to get used to. But once you do, I mean, it's like I'm drifting like in space. I didn't even know that was a thing. So I'm like flying and it's in the drift. I'm like coming around and I'm just like nailing like 5 or 6 different. It's so good once you get the. I have a little bit of an issue with a couple of things, but for the most part, it's fantastic.
Man, that's good to hear. Looking forward to the review for sure.
I will be doing the review hopefully next week sometime.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Besides that, I finished Mafia. Got the review out. Great game.
Yeah. And I read the review. I haven't finished it yet. I am playing it. Really enjoy it so far. I do like that it's really narrative driven. And I think there's something to be said for that versus just. I love open world games. They're probably my favorite thing, but there's something to be said for just keeping a tight story as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's a nice change of pace when you've got all these games that are, take you hours on end. And this one's just focused and, and you can go out and explore a little bit, if you really, really wanted to. And they actually have a mode that's set up just for that. Yeah. But it's just, it's a nice kind of throwback to those, linear games that have a good story. And they did an amazing job with the upgrades. So it looks awesome.
Yeah, it is really well done. Really well done. So, well, very cool, man. So, I've just been playing Mafia. I haven't played a lot this week. I did start a new stream series. I'm replaying Prey, one of my favorite games of the generation.
So good.
There you go. So, Benji, we were just eye to eye, man.
That game is so good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. One of my favorite games of the generation. So I figured we are looking for a game because when Demon Souls comes out, I'm starting a new stream that night, launch 19 streams. But I was like, what can I play for the next month or so? And I was like, go back and play Prey. So definitely check that out. That's fun to go back to. Rocket League, been playing a lot of Rocket League. That's always fun. Nothing new to report on that front. But anyway, man, been an absolute pleasure. So I think we're going to call out some things here. So as Dan said, the Mafia review is up on the site. My latest kind of in-depth article is up on the site comparing the contrasting strategies, a lot of what we talked about today between PlayStation and Xbox. That's up on the site. I would really appreciate you guys checking it out. We also have reviews coming for Squadrons, Hades, and Roller Coaster Tycoon of all things,
Nice.
because that was just ported over to the Switch, and so Phasma is checking that out for us. We don't know who's locked down as a guest next week yet. We are talking to John Scar from Best Buy Canada. He's going to be joining us soon. Archimedes going to be back on soon because he had that hiccup with messing up his ankle last week and couldn't join us. So we'll figure out who's going to come on next week. But Benji, man, it's been a blast. Been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much. I've loved it. It's been a blast.
So that's good to hear, man. Yeah, we'll have to have you back on in the future again, of course. Always a pleasure chatting with you. So before we head out, why don't you let people know where they can find you?
Yeah. So you can find me one of two places. Twitter, I am just at Benji Sales. That's where I'm the most active. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me and talk to me. I'm really interactive on Twitter. I'm there, more than I should be, to be honest. I'm on Twitter all day long. So Twitter is the best way to get a hold of me, but also I do have a YouTube channel as well, which is just Benji Sales on YouTube. Over there, I do a live stream once a week, sometimes twice a week if there is really big news. And it's basically like a really interactive live chat where we break down the biggest news in the video game industry and sales and business. And it's a fully interactive stream. So it's just me and everyone in chat asking questions, and we break that all down. So you can either find me on YouTube or Twitter, just Benji Sales.
Fantastic.
Nice, man.
Yeah. So thanks again for coming out, man. It's been a joy. Dan, you've got all kinds of stuff going on the rest of the day. I'm gonna go lay down and just watch a movie or something.
I'd much rather do that. That sounds way better than what I'm about to do. I mean, it's gotten to the point where we're taking two vehicles.
Actually, compared to what you have to do, the way you described it, my surgery doesn't even sound that bad.
It's so bad. I could keep going. I could literally have an entire 2-hour show. Just my hatred and my despise.
Easy.
I don't even know. That's not even the right word. Like just be aware of what you're doing to other people when you do anything, really. That's just a general rule of life.
Much goes for anything. Have some self-awareness. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
Jeez,
but anyway, chat, you've been awesome. I hope I haven't looked at my Twitter, obviously, but the DE and what was it? Not Killer Kel. He was just here.
Cool Kill.
We have a Killer Kel that drops by. You guys are going to mess me up here. Cool Kill. Make sure you hit me up in the DM. We'll get you that month of Game Pass Ultimate. Thanks, everyone, for chat. You've been awesome. That was Bitcast 125, and we will see you next Saturday. Peace.